Welcome to Audacity Works, a podcast inspired by and dedicated to the working artist, the creative entrepreneur, and generally, doing the damn thing. This exists on the premise that the world belongs to those who have the audacity to believe that their lives have value. This is for you. Welcome to Audacity Works. I'm your host, Rachel Strickland, and this is episode number 182, and it's about big injuries, or otherwise, things that take you away from the thing you would rather be doing for an indeterminate amount of time. But first, some updates. I didn't actually tell you last week how it went. I took that 4-hour butoh workshop when I was in Asheville last week. And I gotta tell you, I'm pretty hooked. I'm definitely hungry for more. And I'm hoping that the Asheville Butoh Festival is a thing this fall like it was last fall. I don't even know enough to tell you what it's about. And apparently there's a lot of fighting on the inside of that scene on the purpose of butoh and like how it should be approached. So I don't have any of those answers. All I know was I loved having Mari Osanai. I think she's 80, barely spoke any English, Japanese practitioner, but it was more than enough to follow her instructions. Was amazing. And to be told by her, don't use your muscles to move. Let the water that moves inside of your body move your limb, not your muscles. I'm like, okay, let's do that. Yeah, she was a masterful practitioner and facilitator, and I would 10 out of 10 want to study with her some more. And there's art happening, y'all. If you are local to Charleston and you are free on the afternoon of May 3rd, come on down to the Park Circle Community Center. My new dance company that I joined, Jessie Natusch Dance Works, have our first performance at 3 p.m., 3 to 3:30 p.m. It's for free, so just wander in and sit down. You ain't got to put any skin in the game. But if you do, make sure you stay after to see me because I would really like to say hello to you, whoever you are. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. As well, I'm remembering my old love for the minute muscle memory of belly dance drills and just dancing again in general. And all of this does tie in to the subject of today's podcast. I haven't danced in a really long time, and the reason for that is because I've been injured. I've not talked about it like much on the podcast. I've kept my Patreon up to date, but the SI joint injury that resulted from a month in the wheelchair with my right leg extended and to a 90-degree extension, that became a very severe issue, and it impacted every movement pattern of daily life, particularly like trying to lean over a sink to brush my teeth. That was basically impossible for several months, much less, like practicing a 3/4 shimmy or, God forbid, a tour jeté, of which I did 4 today. Thank you very much. And the reason for that is the wonder that is high quality specialty physical therapy. In my case, that's postural reformation. There's one practitioner in South Carolina who does it, and she practices out of West Ashley. So lucky me, I happily pay her out of pocket because the insurance did give me a PT, but she was very general. She tried, and it didn't go anywhere. But the specialist, chef's kiss, very good. And now I am shimmying again and doing tour jetés, and I can bend over to pet my cat without leaning on a desk for support. normal movement patterns are coming back, and they haven't been normal for a long time. And that really brings me to the story that I wanted to share with you today, because I know a lot of people, in particular, one audacious one, badly injured and like having to pull out of a show. And this happens on a long enough timeline to every physical performer. Maybe it's something small, maybe it's something big. And that's not me being like doomsday. Just on a long enough timeline, you can't expect perfect health every single day of your life. You're going to puke backstage. Looking at you, you know who I'm talking about. You're going to puke backstage. You're going to get, I don't know, run into by a bike messenger. And yeah, I'm not even talking about injuries that happen while you're doing the dangerous physical discipline that you do. But some injuries are, annoying. You get a little PT, you make some alterations, and you move on with your life. And some injuries are a reckoning, a fucking reckoning. Cue existential crisis. Cue, is this the end of my creative practice in this way? Should I just take up crochet and do that full time? And that's the kind of injury that I'm talking about today. So, story time. It is San Francisco. It's around 2014, and things are going really well for me. I have lots of gigs. I'm gigging almost every weekend. I've got a good community surrounding me, and I have an upcoming contract in Australia to work with Dawn and Ruth. That's Natural Wings Aerial Dance, some lovely friends and collaborators of mine that I've gotten to work with several times. I think, what have we made? 3 shows together? And I had a contract coming up with them. And I was going to be gone, I think, 5 weeks in Western Australia. Anyway, I'm traveling home from a gig. I've got my gig makeup on, jewels stuck all over my face, and I'm actually not heading home. I decided to stop by a party at a friend's house because Manflesh was there. Well, guess what? I didn't make it to the party because a drunk driver T-boned me, more or less, totaled my car. It spun around 1.5 times. I was just sort of left dazed. I thought my arm was broken. We went to the hospital. Manflesh got there in a flash. It wasn't broken, but it was what you call a crush injury. From the force, all the force of that impact went into my infraspinatus, like the nice, sensitive, squishy meat right behind your shoulder. And it was crushed so badly and traumatized so badly, it basically turned into goo. And they didn't really know what to do for this muscle is now a liquid. So they put my arm in a sling and sent me home and said, rest and drink water, it'll get better. Well, it did, but my brain and my arm stopped communicating. Like, I could still use my hand. I could still type, but I would have to use my right hand to pick my left hand up and place it at the keyboard. It was bizarre. Even after the pain kind of stopped, I couldn't move my arm. It just wasn't communicating with my brain. So we flew to Louisiana to see my dad. Dad's a witch doctor, kind of a genius body worker. He's a chiropractor, but he doesn't do straight up chiropractic and hasn't for 30 years, 20 years. 20 years. And he was able to see what was going on, and he restored the connection between my arm and my brain. And I'll tell you how, just because it was really interesting. He held my arm up over my head and said, "I'm going to let go. Try not to let it fall." And he let go, and I tried to slow it down. And I didn't really succeed, but just that was enough to restore the communication between my arm and my brain. Isn't that incredible? And it was still pretty muddy communication. I remember just trying really simple ballet port-de-bras. Took so much concentration. I just had to focus so much. It felt like doing the most intensely complicated puzzle to do something that my arm had been doing since I was 3 years old. Needless to say, Ariel was not really in the picture for the foreseeable future. And even when things started to really look up a week or so after that, and I said to Dad, can I still go to Australia? Can I do my contract? And he said, well, here's the thing. You can still do this contract, like you could accomplish it, but it will definitely shorten your career. I would advise you to stay home and heal thoroughly if you want to keep doing this. Now, there's a Sophie's choice for you. In the end, even though the visa was bought and paid for, I don't think the flights had been bought yet, thank God. But everything was ready to go, but I couldn't ignore what Dad was saying to me. He was like, you could technically accomplish this, but you shouldn't. You should stay home and heal if you want to keep doing this. And I had to make that choice, and I did. And I remember feeling like everything that I had worked for was just fallen around my feet and lost. All because of like one moment and one fool who was fucked up on whatever. They never found the driver of the other car. He got up and bolted. So cue then the existential crisis. So once I made that decision not to go to Australia to make the show with my friends, I'm like, well, now what? And what that ended up being was I thought about going to chiropractic school to get certified in the same modality that my dad does, and then have him teach me his proprietary techniques, and then I could be a miracle body worker like him, right? Good plan. So I enrolled in like anatomy and physiology classes, and I took intro to chemistry at the local community college and threw myself into learning for the next couple of years. That wasn't the only thing I was doing, but I did that for a couple of years. And I distinctly remember the most painful parts of that period of time were my arm was just not the same for months and months after the accident. But the only exercise I had available to me was sprinting on the mountain behind my house. So I would go for these runs on the mountain. And I remember how they smelled spicy and warm. And there were these amazing vistas, like grand views of the San Francisco Bay, and you could see the city laid out. And I was just trying to come to terms with the possibility that like my life as a performer was over. And the grief was immeasurable. I just couldn't wrap my heart around it. Like, how can this be it? I think I was 32 at the time. 31 or 32. Young. And in the end, when it came down to the wire, I decided not to go to chiropractic college. And I rehabbed that shoulder slow and steady until it was better than it had been before. And that's when I started working with Circus Automatic. If you don't know Circus Automatic, it's like truly envelope pushing work, genre defying, led by led by Fleeky Flanco, the front-bending contortionist from San Francisco that if you've ever had the pleasure of watching him perform, you lucky dog, is probably my favorite physical performer in the world. And the shows that we made together as a company were really cutting edge, and I'm still just so proud of them and the risks that we took. And I know, like, this sounds like, oh, such a nice story, but I didn't know that that was in my future when I was running on that mountain, trying to wrap my head around the fact that, like, maybe this was it and my dream was done. And that's all the time that I got. Because I didn't know what the next phase looked like. I only know how to do the thing I had already done. That's what can be so lonely about being an artist, is that there's no career path. And I know that that is also an exciting part of what we do. And it's an exciting part of being a working artist. You don't have to do it any certain way. But also, you can't do it any certain way because there is no certain way. And that's the other side of that double-edged sword. And it can be very frightening. And there is a reason that most people are not working artists. It can be a really uncertain life. Now, looking back on this, and I'm so happy that I can tell you this story, even though, like, I lost what at the time was just such an amazing contract with my friends in Australia. Even though I lost that, I had to really stand in that grief, not knowing that the next thing that was going to come up for me was going to be Circus Automatic and end up being one of my favorite things I've ever done. So this is specifically to those of you who are in that circus grief place, running on the mountain, smelling the spice, trying to wrap your head around, is this it? Am I done? I can't tell you if you are or not. What I can tell you is that, baby, you are not dead yet. Muscles heal, tendons heal, bones heal, hearts heal. All of them retain scars. Quite honestly, I have recorded this podcast for a very specific, tiny fraction of people, or for lots of people at a very specific, tiny fraction of their lives, which is if you are so badly hurt that you are starting to doubt whether your future contains the thing that you love at all. And there is nothing I can say or would say to take that grief away from you. That is an important grief. This podcast won't make you feel any better. Well, I don't know, maybe it will, but probably not. And I won't say anything so trite and useless as "you are not alone." I've never really saw a great value in that sentiment. I'm aware of it. But I do want to say that even if it feels like everything is ending and everything is falling apart around you, don't tell yourself the story that this is the end. It could very, very well be the beginning. That's not for you to know right now. For you to know right now is how to heal. And I wish you luck and excellent practitioners on your healing journey. So let's go ahead and not sign the death certificate of your creative practice yet. Even if it feels like it's over, don't sign the certificate. Refuse. Be ungovernable. If it feels like hell, that's why I'm calling it a reckoning. That's what that is. And as painful as it can be, I hope you'll pay attention to it. It won't last forever, so pay attention while it's here. Thank you so much for spending this time with me and listening to me yammer on my lovely digital soapbox. If you have requests for future episodes, you can find me always on Instagram at Rachel Strickland Creative or on Patreon at Rachel Strickland Creative. This podcast is powered by Patreon. And in fact, patrons, this just in, the video evidence of my interview with S. Hodelmoser, aka Strange Wonderful Creature. And if he isn't just all of the above. Someone had asked for Chris. What's up, Chris? Thank you for asking. Chris had asked for the video of this. I've never shared the video of a podcast interview before, but she wanted to see our faces and hand gestures. So I said, okay. And now it's on the Patreon. Well, it is there for your leisurely enjoyment. And patrons, thank you so much for standing with me, and thank you for your trust. And I have been through quite a reckoning in the past, not even a year, since the snake bite, say since August of 2025, when my injury got really bad after being in that wheelchair. Thanks for standing with me through that time. This podcast and the way that I am now could not exist without you. Thank you. Until next time, my friends, if you're in a reckoning, happy healing. May you pay attention to it and don't go back to sleep.